Thought and Thinking. Key to Stress-Free Life. A book by Sri Bhagavath. All of us come across so many problems in our daily life. Each problem can be categorized in two ways. Psychological aspect of the problem, which is mind-related. Physical aspect of the problem, which is related to the external world. Let us name them as internal and external respectively. Since we have not categorized our problems in this way, they look very complex to us. If we are able to do so, we will be able to solve all such complex problems very easily. Let us now analyze the problem using another classification, thought and thinking. People who have approached a problem using this method have come out of all their problems. They are even surprised at how powerful this method is. We welcome you too to this world of surprises. The following incident explains a problem which a government employee faced in his office. Once there was a meeting of government employees in the presence of their superior official. This employee was also part of that meeting. The superior officer was addressing the participants and the session was going uninterrupted. While the meeting was in progress, suddenly the employee's mobile phone started ringing. The employee realized at once that he had come to the meeting without switching off his mobile phone. He then immediately switched it off, however the speaker's flow got interrupted. The superior officer really got annoyed for not following the basic discipline of switching off his phone before coming to the meeting. He considered this as a serious offense and handed over a punishment transfer order to that employee. It is surely a mistake on the part of the employee for not switching off his phone before coming to the meeting. However, he did not do this intentionally, and also on hearing his phone ringing, he immediately switched it off. This can be at best considered a human error, but definitely not a punishable offense. The superior officer could have left him with a warning or a memo for not following the basic discipline. But giving this type of punishment for such a trivial disciplinary issue is too harsh and beyond the limits. The employee felt that the punishment given to him was too harsh. He felt angry and wanted to somehow take a revenge on this superior officer. He felt really insulted, wondering how he can be punished to such an extent for a trivial error on his side. He kept thinking about the same incident again and again. He could not even sleep during the night, as these thoughts kept coming up in his mind again and again. He even decided not to think about this anymore, but his mind did not care to listen to any of his conclusions. The thoughts which he wanted to avoid kept coming back again and again with more force. He was affected by these thoughts day and night. He could not eat and sleep properly. He came to me asking how to solve his problem. I gave him the following approach. Let us understand what is thought and what is thinking. Thought comes naturally on its own unconsciously, whereas thinking is a conscious and willful activity performed by us. So thoughts come on their own, whereas thinking is an action performed by us. Let us see the difference between thought and thinking. Thoughts come on their own, like smoke waves emerging from an incense stick, where multiple waves of smoke come out one by one. Thoughts also come one by one, and also disappear like a smoke which vanishes in the air. But let us consider what would happen if we try to take control over these thoughts. When we try to take them under our control, they convert it into thinking. Thoughts are not powerful and they disappear very easily by themselves, whereas thinking is not. Our efforts and actions are directly involved in the process of thinking. So the thoughts revolve around us with more intensity as a vicious circle. Thinking will have much more impact on our psychological and physical system than that of thoughts. Thoughts vanish easily, whereas thinking revolves around us. Thoughts get renewed because of our contribution, and they do not easily die down. Thoughts arise on their own and die down on their own, so you don't have to perform any action to get rid of them. Whereas, thinking is different. You have taken the control and started contributing to it. Now, you have to step back, drop your contribution and allow it to flow naturally. In case you want to take legal action against this punishment transfer, then you have to start thinking about your plan of action for the same. Thinking is required for us to act on something. Thinking is required to explore about the necessary legal actions that can be taken, help that can be sought from employees' union, etc. However, if you don't want to pursue any such legal actions, then there is no need to think about this incident at all. Even if you decide not to think about it, thoughts about this incident will come out on their own. When an undesirable incident happens to you, thoughts about the incident will keep coming to you again and again. It is quite natural. Now the question arises, don't we have to get rid of these thoughts? Should we not get freed from such thoughts? We did not create these thoughts ourselves, they came on their own. These thoughts that came on their own will also die down on their own. Because the lifetime of each and every unconscious thought is just a fraction of a second only. Thoughts die down almost as soon as they arise, we don't have to do anything to get rid of them. It is enough if we don't intervene with its natural flow and not convert them into thinking. So, what happens if we don't intervene with this natural flow of thoughts and allow them to flow freely? Thoughts which were constantly revolving around us will stop doing so. Thoughts which were rushing down will slow down its pace. The frequency of these thoughts will slow down. Thoughts about this incident, which were arising at the rate of 5 thoughts per minute, will slow down to 1 thought every 5 minutes. In this way, these thoughts will become weak more and more. Then, they arise once in 30 minutes, once in an hour, and then at very rare occasions only. The government employee got benefited from this concept of thought and thinking. A married couple came to meet me for a similar problem. But their problem was more serious than that of the government employee. The solution given to the government employee was given to this married couple as well. This is really a sad incident that happened in their life. He is a doctor and they had lost their only child, who was 18 months old. The doctor explained about his situation. It is really a great loss in our life, however I somehow managed to recover from this incident and could move on with life. But my wife is not able to recover from this loss and she is constantly worrying about it. This is now going beyond a limit, it has started impacting the health of her heart and mind. It has resulted in some physical and psychological problems in her. We have even consulted few psychologists, but in vain, and now have come here looking for your guidance. Technically speaking, the root of the problem is the same for both the government employee and the doctor. I then explained them in detail. Losing the only child is a great loss for anyone in life. So it is quite natural for sorrowful thoughts about this incident arising in you. There is nothing wrong in this. But it can't be the only reason for your suffering. You or anyone can't come out of this problem if this is the real cause of the problem. Actually, these repeated waves of thoughts are not the real culprit. Thought is not the problem. It happens unconsciously and dies down unconsciously. When we ride upon the unconscious thoughts, they become conscious thoughts. Conscious thought means thinking. Thought is not a problem, thinking alone is a problem. The real problem is conversion of thought into thinking. While we ride and travel over our thoughts, these thoughts become thinking. When those thoughts create sorrow, we align with them thinking how sorrowful the incident is. Is it not the duty for a parent to be sorrowful? Is it not the homage that a parent should pay to the child? Thus we give authority to those thoughts. Thereby we give consent to those thoughts to take root in our nervous system. As a consequence, it creates different kind of symptoms for various diseases. Then we begin to fear thinking, do we have heart problem? Do we have psychological problem? In this way, we convert these thoughts, which arise on their own, into thinking by riding upon them. What has happened here? We have converted the free flowing of thoughts as the free flow of water into thinking as spinning water. We have strengthened these thoughts now. If we don't convert these thoughts into thinking, these thoughts which came in multiple waves will die down on their own. So, thoughts are not the real problem, they come on their own and also die down on their own. Thinking is the problem, it does not happen on its own, we contribute and create this with our own volition. It is enough if we stop our conscious contribution to this situation. The waves happening on their own will subside on their own. It is sufficient if we stop riding over these thoughts. Thus we have explained about the problem. The basic problem is only the conversion of thought into thinking. This then takes various gigantic, complex forms and make people paralyzed. Similarly, sometimes people may have missed an opportunity to take care of their loved ones while alive. They may not have made a clear decision on which doctor to consult, and their loved one may have died due to this. This leads to that person feeling guilty about it. He thinks that he could have saved him if he had consulted the right doctor. He also feels that his life could have been saved if he had acted appropriately. Things which have happened has already happened, nothing can be done, and we should just stop with this. We should not feel guilty for whatever has already happened. Even these guilty feelings are not wrong if they come on their own naturally. It becomes a problem only when we consciously convert these thoughts into thinking. Some people complain about having negative thoughts and immoral sexual desires. When this happens, people consider themselves guilty, wondering how such thoughts can arise in them. Let us take an example of immoral sexual desires. We suddenly start feeling guilty, wondering how can I have such feelings in spite of having followed so many spiritual practices. We consider happening of such thoughts in our mind as a crime. We feel guilty and inferior because of these thoughts. We also feel moral and rightful to feel guilty for having such thoughts. In reality, this happened unconsciously. Even though this is an undesirable thought, this is quite natural and innocent. Questioning the occurrence of these thoughts is an artificial and a calculative act. This is inferior to the natural happening. All that which arises on their own without our knowledge are thoughts. They arise and die down on their own. When we consciously consider ourselves guilty, we convert them into thinking. This alone is wrong. We need not struggle to avoid thinking. It is enough if we just avoid taking them into account. Even if they are immoral thoughts, they will die down on their own. This doesn't mean that one should encourage such immoral thoughts by riding over them voluntarily. This conscious contribution is nothing but thinking only. Some people are addicted to bad habits and they really struggle to come out of it. They may be addicted to drinking liquor and they forcefully avoid drinking for a few days. But they will have the thoughts about drinking. If they ride upon those thoughts and convert them into thinking, the thoughts become powerful. Then they will imagine, what will happen if we consume liquor? This thinking stimulates their nervous system. This again strengthens their bad habit. As long as we don't convert these thoughts into thinking, bad habits also would become weaker. Let us assume we rode and traveled over these thoughts and converted them to thinking. What will happen now? How shall we come out of this thinking now? Whether it is a thought or thinking, both are originating from our mind. It will sustain only if we renew them again and again. Even if we had converted these thoughts into thinking, it will sustain only if we do this repeatedly. If we fail to renew them, even this thinking will die down on its own like thoughts do. Now, do we have any responsibility to ensure only noble thoughts arise within us? No, we don't have any such responsibility. We should consider all thoughts that naturally arise in us as natural, even though it may contain some undesirable immoral thoughts. Classification into good and bad can be done only for thinking, which is used for performing external actions. We can also classify them as superior and inferior depending on the actions being performed. Our actions should be rightful and helpful to the society. Thinking required to perform such rightful actions can be considered as good thoughts. Some people complain that they are not able to sleep properly in the night. Thoughts are not a problem for our sleep. Thinking alone is the enemy for our sleep. Thinking will delay our sleep. We need not worry about unwanted thoughts occurring to us when we are lying down in the bed. Even such numerous unwanted thoughts arising in us will get balanced on their own. The entry of thinking alone creates the problem. Thinking makes thoughts revolve around themselves and makes them powerful. It is enough for people who suffer from sleeplessness to avoid thinking while lying down in the bed. Whatever happened in the past may arise again in the form of thoughts. There is nothing wrong in this. It will be a problem only if this gets converted into thinking. This thinking results in giving life to past incidents and creates conflicts within us. We can make use of these thoughts about past incidents into thinking. This will help us an experience to perform our future actions in a better way. But we should not run our office when we retire to bed. We must dismiss all our external activities when we go to bed. Then, sleep will be natural. Some people get unwanted negative thoughts like, will my business fail and create unexpected loss? Will my family members suddenly fall sick? Do we have to replace these with positive thoughts like, we will not incur any loss in our business, it will always be profitable? No, that is not needed. It is enough if we consider these thoughts as natural. If we find any of these thoughts useful for our actions, we can use them only to the extent of the need. What will be our answer if there arises a question, do we need a brake or an accelerator to drive a car? Can we drive a car with the help of a brake alone? But imagine what will happen if we drive a car without a brake. Both accelerator and brake are needed for driving a car. Accelerator is equivalent to positive thoughts and brake is equivalent to negative thoughts. Let us consider a businessman who is running his own business. If he always goes on a positive thought approach thinking that his business will fetch only profits and not losses, what will happen if he keeps increasing his investments in crores based on this positive approach of profit? Any unexpected loss will sink his entire business if he is not careful enough. If he had a negative thought, a small suspicion about possible losses in his business, he would have been more careful. He would have invested only whatever is necessary with appropriate precautions. All our thoughts are psychological. There is no need to classify them as positive and negative. Thoughts about possible losses in a business is indeed not a negative thought. In reality, it is a positive thought because it helps to regulate the investments in our business in a positive way. Thoughts such as, how to get rid of negative thoughts? How do we avoid getting negative thoughts? Are actually negative thoughts. Because these do not help us focus in our external actions, rather forces us to focus back within ourselves to refine those thoughts. We should examine a thought only to see if it is required for an external action or not. As far as our psychological system is concerned, all thoughts are just thoughts. There is no need to classify them as positive or negative and good or bad. We can only classify thinking as good and bad or superior and inferior depending on the actions they are being used for. We don't have any actions as far as our psychological system is concerned. So we don't have any responsibility to refine these thoughts which arises from our psychological system. So there is no need to either hold on to any thoughts or drive away any thoughts. All thoughts are natural, spiritual, holy and originate from our psychological system. All thinking is external, worldly, action-based and related to the external world. Thinking can be classified as good and bad, necessary and unnecessary, beneficial and non-beneficial etc. according to their use in the external world. Thoughts are natural, so trying to take them under our control is ignorance. We should give complete freedom to all kinds of thoughts. This means we should allow them to appear and disappear on their own. As far as our psychological aspect is concerned, there can be any kind of thoughts. It is a divine flow. All thoughts are holy. Making a choice on these thoughts by allowing some thoughts and rejecting some others alone is wrong. We should just understand this simple difference between what is thought and what is thinking. It is enough if we give complete freedom to all our thoughts and not convert them into thinking. If the thoughts are free, you are also free. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.